So, in some news, you have Andy Brashear, who lost his case in court against Matt Bevin just recently when it comes to subpoenaing the teachers. So the Labor Cabinet of Matt Bevin's subpoenaed the State Department of Education to give up information about teacher absences. There was the teacher strikes over the pensions. He's trying to take the pensions, and the teachers are mad. So there was a sick out. So some of them used their sick days in order to go to the protest. And the judge in that outfit, you had Andy Brashear, who filed an injunction against those subpoenas. Well, in the 15-page opinion by U.S. District Judge Danny Reeves says that Andy Brashear is wrong, that the Labor Cabinet can subpoena teachers and their absence records from the state's Department of Education. The counties that were being targeted was Fayette, Jefferson, Bath, Boyd, Bullitt, Carter, Letcher, Madison, Marion, and Oldham counties. So that's in other news. Rocky Atkins voted to ban abortion at 6 weeks. If Roe v. Wade is overturned for all time, he's going to ban, if it's overturned, he's going to ban it for life. So he's pro-life. He's very happy when it comes to the heartbeat bill. He's a Republican wolf in Democrat clothing. He hates the gays, hates female choice, owns and operates Appalachian Fuel, so he's big oil. So Rocky Atkins is a Republican. Now back to Andy Brashear, okay? So it was Fayette County, Jefferson County, Bath County, Boyd County, Bullitt, Carter, Letcher, Madison, Marion, and Oldham counties. So Andy Brashear says he's going to keep on fighting the issue, which is kind of a moral issue in some respects. Now I'm going to be a little harsh on the totalitarian public education schools, and then I'm going to assume there might be some good, decent, progressive schools in Kentucky. I have not seen any of them. So the Labor Cabinet issued subpoenas on striking teachers because there's rumors of sick-outs. And so they were using their sick days in order to go to. Is that an okay tactic? Is not an okay? Is it moral? Is it ethical? It could be illegal. And so what they're going to do is they're going to fine these teachers $1,000 a day for using their sick outs when they actually weren't sick. So they use their sick days to go, cause some trouble, which in general, if you got 10 sick days, I feel like you could use those sick days. What if you only used 1 sick day and you still got 9 sick days at the end of the year? Do you have to hurry up and get a cold? I mean, can't you use sick days for vacation days? It seems like that should be, I don't know. But it's the government, so this is Matt Bevin trying to break the back of the unions, which I hate all these things. The thing I hate about schools, public education, is that they're totalitarian institutions. They are oppressive. They teach obedience to authority. You're nothing but a brick in the wall like the prison systems. They are actively harming their students. So people aren't learning to get along. They're not learning the vocations and the trades and the skills that they need in order to get out to the workplace. The teachers don't give a damn. They're a bunch of careerists. They don't care if you go out and succeed and don't succeed. They are not here for you. They are there for themselves. They got the power. They got the money. Why would they want to? A subpoena is a request or a demand for information. So the Labor Cabinet, which is under the executive branch, which works for Matt Bevin, this is executive power. In a way, I don't know the Constitution of Kentucky like the back of my hand. So the executive branch is the executive branch. They enforce the law. And so since they're looking for information, they are targeting, those 10 Kentucky counties out of 120. So that's 110 counties that weren't, fighting for freedom and justice and solidarity. Where the hell are the rest of you counties, Kentucky? You're going to rely on just what? 10 rebellious teachers to get your pensions? Do you really want to get your pensions? So this tells me if you're a union, you need to be a little bit smarter about this. Now let's talk about the issue. Okay, so they need a pension. They don't get a Social Security. So teachers can't get Social Security, so they're stuck with getting Kentucky State pensions. They get like 50% of their salary compared to 10% of the road workers, but judges get 100% of their salary. So they're getting $130,000 to sit on their ass for the next 40 years. is a major pension crisis because essentially they've been taking the pension fund, or they haven't been putting, it's not solvent, or it's barely solvent, which means most of the pensions might not even be there. They might just all of a sudden disappear. People put all that money into it, and now there's no pension. So they are worried about, essentially that's how they're going to solve the crisis, is just by cutting everybody's pensions. But if they're not getting Social Security checked, then that means they have no retirement whatsoever. Now, should they have been investing in 401ks? If they're already putting money into this state retirement system, you would think that the state retirement system's word would be good, but it isn't. It's turning out to be, it's a major pension crisis. For 10 years, they've been talking about this pension crisis. I wonder if it's manufactured. I wonder if it's just like one of those things, oh no, we need $100 billion for this. It's a crisis. We got a budget crisis. It's an emergency. They've been talking about it for goddamn years. You'd think they'd fixed it by now. They talk about opioids too. When there's so many things, there's poverty, homelessness, health, cancer, STDs, accidents, binge drinking, smoking. The conditions in Kentucky is proof positive the public education system sucks. There's also a lack of vote. What, 9% of the people in Kentucky are going to go vote? How come you didn't learn to go vote when you was going to go to school, or when you was going in public schools? When you went to public schools, how come you didn't learn how to vote? We go to American government schools, and we don't learn anything about American government. So there's teacher strikes. And the labor cabinet, which is ironic, but I guess it's under Bevin, it's there to crush labor. I would think the labor cabinet would make sure that, the National Labor Standards Board basically make sure unions and employers get along together. But the labor cabinet is clearly trying to break the unions of government workers. Now, there's something to be said about government versus private workers. Should government workers be allowed to unionize? And then, it's taxpayer money. So they're just going to, unionize and get the best wages and the best health care and the best pensions and the best everything else. And then the teachers get a lot of perks. They get 3 months off all summer. No weekends, no summers. Hours are 8 to 3 o'clock, so that's 7 hours. That's 35 hours a week. Yeah, I'm sure they, spend a lot of time overtime and whatever. They use their own money, and if they give a damn, okay, I'm going to assume 90% of public schools suck, because I'm just going to assume that for the fuck of it. No, it's just my knowledge and experience. So, universal education. I'm in favor of universal education as Hornsman and John Dewey had envisioned it. For democracy. You got all these unruly Americans, so you got to teach them how to live in a democratic society. Public schools also have a board of education, so there's people that's elected to it. The board chooses the supervisor, and then it's the principals, and then it's the teachers, and then it's the students. So it's very hierarchical, even though it begins with democracy. They also got the site-based decision-making councils where teachers and parents are making decisions together. So there's a lot of things that's great about public education on paper. It starts out being such a great thing. But where does the freedom and democracy go? Once you have the supervisor, then it's just a totalitarian hierarchy. Do you know a ton of reasons why public schools suck, and therefore the teachers don't deserve all that, the weekends, the holiday pay? Then they get sick days on top of their great health care. They're making $40,000, $50,000. They're some of the best paid people, especially in poor areas out here. Their test scores suck. They bitch about teaching to the test, but haven't they been putting tests in front of students their whole goddamn lives? Now all of a sudden they're being tested, and they're like, wait a second, maybe tests aren't the way to do it. They're not teaching civics or home economics, how to get along with one another, lack of vocational schools. So what about the networking? What about the knowledge? What about the experience? So a lot of it's just sit and get, obedience to authority, sit down, shut up. Whereas charter schools are thinking outside the box. So just by them thinking outside the box, we are in a brave new world. This is the information generation. So what the fuck are we still doing this Prussian industrial old school shit? Bunch of, what, you can bring rulers back? There's still some places in Kentucky that spank the kids, so they're in favor of violence against children, to make them dumb and compliant, when if you want good kids, you would raise them to be strong. And good kids, raise them to be strong, intelligent, and to be able to, work out problems and to succeed. So, if you are strong and you have many options, why would you ever choose to do evil? Evil comes from weakness. And so a lot of the totalitarian schools, they are mean, they're humiliating their students, they're basically killing everybody's souls because they're the oppressor. Shut up, sit down, do as you're told. So if you look at the turnout rates, okay, so in May 21st, 2019, they're predicting 9%, single digits, so that's actually on the high side. So maybe 9% of Kentuckians are going to go vote. Did you not go to public education? Did the public schools not have government school or political or something, about civics and go vote? It's important. No, they have no power. They don't want them to have power, so they forgot to tell them. So in so many different ways, in health, poverty, insanity, abuse, illiteracy, all over, Kentucky's got so many major systemic institutional problems. So the public education of Kentucky has absolutely failed them in so many fucking ways it's not even funny. They have failed. Public schools and these unionized teachers have failed. Because they have failed, I don't have much sympathy for any of them. It does seem like, they protested, so they were speaking up for everybody. They need to be, better about it, but I think they might have them. They might have them on this, because if you use a sick day, they want doctors, excuses. They want doctor's notes, but you don't have to go to a doctor because you're sick, so you could just say, no, I just, I had a little cough, and I just wanted to play it on the safe side. And then, even though I had a little cough, I was like, oh, I guess I could go to the Capitol. I mean, the worst thing I could do there is spread my flu to a bunch of shitty-ass politicians. So I feel like, you need a doctor's note? So they're investigating. They're getting down to the nitty-gritty, and they'll find some of them, and they might, because of the stigma, get fired because of it. Maybe not. Maybe they'll save their jobs. So they're coming for their jobs. And so it's right for Andy Brashear to stand up for him. That's his whole thing. He's not for school choice or charter schools. He's all about public education and, just public education, whereas Bevin is essentially anti-public education. He's all about charter schools and religious schools. And the last thing I want to mention, let's assume they're good schools. Let's assume there's, 90% of public schools suck, but let's say 10%. There's actually a culture of freedom and democracy. There's vocation training, civics, philosophy. They're just, essentially letting the kid, like a Montessori school, follow the child. They know what they want to learn. And so, guide them and help them. Let's assume there's progressive schools that actually help people and actually uplifted and empowered folks. If anything, it would seem like you would want to educate someone else to take your position so you can move on up. You could probably put the money in the kids' hands and just have computers inside a building with one monitor, and the education will happen better than just the prison-like, factory-like culture that's in most public schools today. So if the teachers are doing their job, there's freedom and democracy, they're empowering these kids, and they don't get Social Security, they need a pension. They need a retirement just like anybody else. And if they've been paying into that retirement, and now all of a sudden they said, oops, it's because sick-outs are typical in strikes. Unions can strike. That's the point of having a union, to give the workers leverage to work out a contract with their boss. So the labor cabinet's looking for doctor's notes. They're cracking down on some bullshit, and it goes against their right to unionize and strike. But are you allowed to use sick days to protest? You're allowed to protest, but it would seem like you probably should take a day off and not get paid for it. Right? That would be the best way to do it. So I could see both ways. If it's a good school, then I'm frustrated. Hey, they need their pensions, damn it. They've been working. They need their pensions just like anybody else. So why are you fucking with them? But because 90% of public schools absolutely suck ass, part of me says, yeah, you shouldn't. What do you mean, sick days? I can clearly see the government's argument. It's pretty crystal clear. You're supposed to use sick days. What happens if you use all your sick days for protest days and you actually get sick? Now you're coughing on everybody and spreading your sickness when you had sick days to use, but you wasted them playing around when you should have got back to work. So back to work, you teachers. So I see both sides, depending if I like the school or not. If it's progressive, Anyways, that's essentially the news there. Rocky Atkins is a Republican, and Andy Brashear tried to fight for the teachers and their pensions when Matt Bevin is basically doing a witch hunt. Or, 80% of public education is females, but he might find one or two or some that had struck and used the sick day to get paid for it. And so those teachers will probably be found and captured and get a $1,000 fine, and perhaps the stigma might lead to them getting fired. So, yeah, that's all about Matt Bevin won that lawsuit. Baby Brashear bragged about it in the debate. I'll see you in court. You want to try to subpoena these teachers for their absences? I'll see you in court. So it probably was politically motivated. The judge probably made a decent decision, but I don't actually know the constitutional law when it comes to any of this. So, yeah. Congrats, Matt Bevin. Hey, Rocky Atkins is a Republican, Matt. You might want to think about working with him. He's pro-life like you.